Its energy surrounds us and binds us.
What is up, nerds, and welcome back to the Carbonite Convos podcast. Today we have episode 41 coming at you, and in the middle of everything going on with Loki, arguably one of the most popular shows we've ever had on Disney Plus, we felt that now would be a good time to do a mid-season theories episode. So we're going to be mainly talking about Loki, but we do have a couple other things to talk about today on the Marvel side with the new Shang-Chi trailer and what was the other one? Oh, and the new ending to WandaVision. So we're just going to talk about a few different Marvel things. So we're super excited about it. But before we get into that, I'm your host. You can find I'm your host, Funko Stud. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and on TikTok. But right now, I am actually live on TikTok at Star Wars MCU Facts. So if you want to hop in the live, feel free to hop in. And like always, I'm joined by Wall Crawler Pops, who you can find on all three of those outlets as well. It just kind of works out that, my hands pointing this way point to Alec on this side on TikTok and the same side on YouTube. So we're good to go. Alec, how we doing today, brother?
Dude, I'm great. We got some interesting things to talk about. We're kind of halfway through Loki. We're getting another episode tonight, obviously. So some of the things we've been talking about may be relative to change, but there's some things out there that I wanted to get educated on, just so we have a better understanding of some of these characters going forward. There's a ton happening in the MCU going forward, so it's always good to talk about it and be prepared for whatever we're gonna see. So I'm ready to get into it, dude. But as always, before we do, can't forget, we got the big three. That's like, comment, and subscribe. If you're in the live on TikTok, feel free to throw your thoughts out there, comments, throw those little hearts or whatever likes, however it works on there.
We're still new, so we don't even know what it is.
We would greatly appreciate the support, guys, and we want to know your thoughts with everything. So please feel free to chime in whenever.
Yes, sir. So definitely everybody in the chat, thank you very much for hopping in. We have a few in there now, so thank you. We can't thank you enough for just joining us tonight for episode 41. So I say we just get into it. I got a list of Loki theories on mine. You really beat me to the punch. You got like a book report down here, so we're just gonna go with it. So my first theory that I want to talk about is and this really isn't a theory, it's kind of more of a fact, because they showed us in the first episode, was that Loki's death was not when Thanos snaps his neck. Because we see the reel playing. Loki is watching his life. And the reel does not end until the ship blows up. So I thought that was I don't know. I thought that was insanely interesting, just because this whole time we thought Loki died by the hand of Thanos, and he still did. Thanos pretty much crushed his windpipe and then blew up the entire ship. But Loki's, on the sacred timeline, if the sacred timeline is even a thing right now, I know that's all up in the air, but Loki's death was actually when the ship blew up. So what do you think about that?
So I thought it was super, again, just like you said, I thought it was super interesting. What I want to think about is, if there's, obviously with like the TVA and like the multiple timeline things, is there a timeline where Thanos didn't crush Loki's windpipe and like take away all his strength, where Loki actually survives that ship exploding?
Well, I think we're getting a little too deep into it, because in reality, the reality we live in, there's a lot of belief that there are infinite universes, you know what I mean?
Right.
And there's infinite possibilities. So I think what this series is moving towards is that there is one timeline. There isn't this multiverse where there's an infinite amount of possibilities and outcomes. So I think there might be, but
I think either way though, like if Thanos would not have choked him like that, I think there's a very high possibility Loki survives that situation.
What makes you say that?
He's a god.
I mean,
If Thor has the ability to survive that, obviously we don't know what happened with Valkyrie and all that, if they were on a different ship or if they escaped, whatever, but they were able to survive that somehow. how would he not have been able to survive that too?
That kind of leads into other theories for this whole show. It's, with Loki and the powers that we're seeing from him now, he decides to go after Thanos with a dagger to the neck when he has 2 Infinity Stones. And he doesn't decide to use any magic or anything like that, especially since now he pretty much has the Force. And it looks like he can rewind time. He can shoot energy blasts. It's curious as to why, why he would have used that, which kind of leads into the next theory is why does he seem so much more powerful in this show?
Here's a theory before we get into that. I saw online someone had a really good theory, is that the reason he went after him with a dagger is because he knew he was not able to kill Thanos. Like that was not his plan when he tried to stab him in the throat. Yeah. Right. His whole thing was that he diverted Thanos' attention away from Thor and Hulk and everybody that was there, just to buy more time. Because if Loki wouldn't have done that, and like the time it took him to kill Loki, odds are he would have gone after Thor next. And given the situation, probably would have killed Thor. And so it was kind of a hero's play. He kind of sacrificed himself in a way just to delay the process as long as possible.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's strange. I don't really know what that does other than delay his death a few seconds. You know what I mean?
Well, if in that concept, that saves Thor's life.
But does it? Like, because who would have said Thanos wouldn't have just blown up the entire ship as it was? Instead
either way it blew up.
Okay, so either way, if it was blowing up, Thor was surviving either way, unless Thanos would have purposefully killed Thor, which I don't think.
That's what this theory is saying, is that given the amount of time, because the ship was set to explode in a certain amount of time. If Loki wouldn't have drawn out that process,
that was set to explode. See, that's not right though. Like, it was set to explode as he used the gauntlet as he exited the ship, because you see the Infinity Stones light up. So you see him with the gauntlet, you see the purple one flash, and that's when the ship starts, falling apart, disintegrating. And then you see the blue one flash, which is where he, disappeared into space. So, I mean, the ship wasn't on like a time, like a time clock or anything. But I don't know. It is interesting because it's how would Loki, the god of mischief, who has worked for Thanos, think that would do anything?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one theory that I have seen, which I think is a very real possibility, is that Loki has Infinity Stones. Because as we see, in the first episode, he has that humbling experience where he sees the 2 Tesseracts, like 15 other
is this the strongest force in the universe, or the strongest power in the universe?
And, the Infinity Stones and time, it doesn't all work in the TVA the same as it does in our universe. So I think one of the big theories out there right now is that you never see Loki put the Infinity Stones back, because Loki's plan the whole time is to get out, and he's the god of mischief. He can find a way, and he did find a way. So it's out there that he kept some Infinity Stones, knowing that they wouldn't work in the TVA, but knowing they would continue to work outside of the TVA, which is where they've been for the past episode and a half. And that kind of explains, one, how he was able to do some of the powers that he was doing, but also 2, why he was so calm in this whole situation, because, he's getting drunk. He's getting drunk on a train. He's getting drunk on the train, seeming like he's not caring about the
But yeah,
circumstances.
anything. There's one situation, and in my opinion, this was extremely noticeable in the last episode, Lamentus one, when
Yeah.
he lifts that building. That's not magic. There's no way that's just magic, because if you look at the building, go back up, the smoke around it, the dust around it, and the building itself goes perfectly back in place. That is 100% him rewinding time. That is 100% him using the time stone. You cannot change my mind on that fact. I've seen the episode 3 or 4 times now. There is no way at this point anyone can convince me that is not him using the time stone.
So why does it not have the energy around his hand when he's now, granted, he is turned around. We see him from the back, but usually the time stone it's wrapped around. It's pretty thick. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think we just got a question. Is Loki in the quantum realm?
I do not have that question.
Well, let's get into that in a sec. Let's finish this because that's another theory. But I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but Loki's energy is green to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? So the time stone is also green.
But we didn't see any of it. When he moves the building, we don't see any energy.
I believe, I might be wrong here, but I'm 95% sure it's around there's a green energy around the building that is getting lifted.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Don't hold me to that, but I'm like 95% sure there's like an aura around it.
If that's true, then
that's also,
which I do agree that I think the most likely factor is that's the time stone. I just am trying to think of how to explain it, because
here's something else I want to think about too, is because I wonder if Loki being a sorcerer type, I feel like that's a little bit different in how he can use the Infinity Stones. Like, look at how Doctor Strange uses the Eye Agamotto and the Time Stone. He never has to physically touch it, right? He uses his magic to open the eye and then use the Time Stone. I don't think we've seen Loki use the Tesseract per se in the episode without it physically being in his hand or being in his scepter. But Loki is magical. He is a sorcerer. He knows how to use magic. If that's the case, why wouldn't he be able to use the time stone without physically having to touch it and kind of feeding into his magic? You know what I'm saying? It's very similar to how Doctor Strange works.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he was touching it. Maybe it was in his hand.
Maybe it could have been in his pocket. It could have been in his hand. We don't know. But I don't think it's out of the question to say that he has probably not as strong and very different, but like very comparable to how Doctor Strange uses the time stone.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that was the most interesting part of the episode. And during our reaction, which you guys can check out on YouTube as well, both of our faces kind of light up like,
whoa, what just happened?
Wait, where did that come from?
Even when he was just like throwing the energy ball type things, like where did that come from? Like there's either that's magic he's just never wanted to use, or it takes an Infinity Stone to bring it out of him, which I don't know why he would have never used that, especially in like Ragnarok.
Well, not even that. It's like this Loki. It's not like he has a bunch of time. Like he hasn't experienced Ragnarok. He hasn't experienced the Dark World, Infinity War. I don't know why I struggled on that word. He hasn't experienced that. So the Loki we're seeing is literally like, I don't know, 2 weeks after. Time moves differently in the TVA, but it's right after Endgame. Not Endgame. Sorry, it's right after the first Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, why wouldn't he have used that in New York? Why wouldn't he have used any of these?
Right. Maybe if I had to guess, let's just say he has had these powers the whole time. If anyone is someone who like toys with people, it's Loki. So maybe not going fully berserker, or maybe not going to his full capabilities, just to kind of toy with his enemy. Maybe that's why. But this is the first time, I guess this is technically the first time he's really in a life or death situation. Like he knows he's going to die. So maybe he's actually going out like full out with all his strength to try and get on the arc.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he's like realizes, it's crunch time. I don't know. Hopefully we find out some more of that tonight. I really liked in the last episode when he was talking about Frigga and how she taught him the magic and all that sort of stuff. And when we find out Sylvie's self-taught and all that.
The interesting thing about that is Frigga, and I believe it was Thor. I believe it was the Dark World. I could be wrong. She says, no. It was Endgame. I'm sorry. She says to Thor,
I was raised by witches.
And that she is the most powerful person in Asgard.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like that has a lot to do with it as well, because she very well could be more powerful than Odin.
I want to know who Sylvie's parents were, because like she never says it. Yes, she is Frost Giant. That is confirmed. She says that. She said that. She said that.
Oh, really?
However, she said she's adopted, yada yada. We'll get it. I'm gonna bring. Let's put that on pause real quick, because that leads into some stuff I have about Sylvie as a character. Let's answer this question about Loki being in the quantum realm.
That's weird, because I don't even have that question showing up.
So it's from the Scooter Boys. Is Loki in the quantum realm? Obviously, there's that theory out there that the TVA itself is in the quantum realm, because back in Ant-Man and the Wasp, you can see very briefly in the background when Scott finds Janet, something that resembles some sort of city skyline in the quantum realm. If there's a connection there, I don't see why it couldn't be that, just because of Mobius saying like time works differently here, just like in the quantum realm, time works differently here. The technology is so advanced there. None of it's magic. There's flying cars. It's all like magnetized and stuff. I don't know. Hopefully, again, we'll find out a little bit more of that. If we're talking about how they're going to be able to travel to the different multiverses and stuff, I'm going to go ahead and guess it's going to be through the quantum realm. But that'd be my most educated guess. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, because they have those devices. So maybe they're kind of like they use that quantum energy. I don't even know if that's a thing.
Maybe it channels the quantum energy.
Maybe it's kind of like the same as the van, except the TVA made it and they have been able to shrink it majorly. But I think it's a very real possibility that the TVA could be in the quantum realm, because that might be the one place where, the Avengers or the Eternal, I don't know if the Eternals or not, but any of these major hero groups might not be able to sense what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. All right. So we went over his death was not Thanos' choke. I'm going to give that a little check mark. What else do you have so far?
So while we were kind of in the same topic from earlier, talking about Sylvie a little bit and like her mother obviously not being Frigga. Because we don't know if Sylvie was raised on Asgard. We don't know who her adopted parents technically are. She is adopted in some capacity. We know that. But we don't know if she grew up in Asgard. We don't know if she's technically a god or not. But we do know that she is Frost Giant. So at this point, she is Sylvie Laufey daughter, right? However,
is that what they call them?
Well, that's what her name would be.
I'm saying, is that what, like, Thor's Odinson, Loki is Odinson, Laufey's son.
Yes, it'd be spelled Laufey, so Laufey daughter, Dottir in the Nordic spelling.
That's cool.
Which I think is really cool. I love how that works. But so in the comics, just kind of compare the two real quick. And honestly, I don't think this is out of the question for it to be, especially with I feel like the MCU has been kind of comic accurate as of late, and like how the future is going to be looking. So in the comic, there's a character that Sylvie is actually Sylvie Luston from Earth, and her powers are given to her by Loki when the Asgardians move to Earth after Asgard's destroyed.
Now, is that the same person as the Enchantress?
Well, I'll get there. So basically, like, that could be a connection to New Asgard, maybe. So maybe she was given her powers after Ragnarok, after Surtur destroyed Asgard. Maybe there's some sort of connection there. Again, we don't know. But no, she's just a normal person. She was actually created to be a villain.
Yeah.
And fight against the Young Avengers by Loki. later on, she ends up taking the alias of Amora the Enchantress, who is actually a different person in Marvel Comics. She's her own character. Um, Basically, the Young Avengers turn her away. She goes and teams up with Norman Osborn and the Young Masters, the villains. Fights for them for a little bit. Eventually, in the comics, Loki dies, and her connection to her powers start to kind of fade a little bit. She ends up getting it back, and then we go on a little bit further later, and the real Amora, the Enchantress, finds out that Sylvie's been using this surname,
Oh,
and finds her, and then banishes her to a different realm. To basically, like, that's where she still is
so
to this day in the comics. No one knows where she is.
so is Sylvie kind of like an anti-hero as well?
I don't want to call her an anti-hero because she was kind of created under poor circumstances. She wants to fight for the Young Avengers, but they turn
Oh,
her away.
really? What?
They
Because
turned
of
her
how
away.
she was.
I'm assuming it's because of her connection to Loki, and
Huh.
like her reasons for being turned into this powerful being was to fight against the Young Avengers, but then she has a conscience and is like, no, I want to fight for you. And they're
Yeah.
like, nah, get out of here. She goes, works for the Illuminati, the Young Masters, and then kind of, yeah.
So
So
let me ask you this,
so kind of interesting, but she has all the powers of
Loki.
Loki, essentially, like all the powers of a frost giant, can manipulate ice and cold, can live for thousands of years, telekinesis, body projection,
Yeah.
all power bestowal, and everything we've seen with Sylvie in the MCU so far.
So let me ask you this. That is one theory because, well, that's not really a theory, but a possibility of where this could go. So I guess that is called a theory.
Yeah.
What do you think about the theory that she at one point was a TVA agent?
I
Because
don't
there are a
think
lot of,
that's. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, there are a lot of things that point to that too, because um, there are a lot of powerful beings in the universe that aren't able to travel through apocalypses just willy-nilly, and somehow are able to avoid the TVA every single time, until Loki shows up. But she manages to do it, and I've seen a lot that's because she's had an extensive time spent studying these. We see Loki studying them in episode 2. But we didn't see Sylvie doing it, but a lot of people think that maybe that's how she was able to avoid the TVA for so long, and she's able to survive throughout these several apocalypses, if that's how you say the word, because she knows she studied them, she knows what happens, um and all that.
So here's what we know so far is that, so like I'm gonna look at her wording and her word choice in this. She says the TVA agents, they're all variants just like us. Okay.
Yeah.
And then she also says she spent her entire life running from these people. So was she taken as a little girl? Because she says she doesn't. I don't know, how did she say it? She said like she never really knew her parents too much until they told her she was adopted, but like she kind of got out of there kind of quick. Or was she
Well,
taken? Was she
let's
like, how
think of
did
it
she?
this
How
way
did,
too.
I don't think it's out of the question that she said she was a TV agent. How else would she know this information, and why would she be plotting against them so hard?
Exactly. And it's almost as if, she straight up says every TVA agent, they had their mind wiped and everything. Loki clearly didn't have his mind wiped because they need what's in his head. They need him. But maybe she was able to escape that somehow before she had her mind wiped. But, the TVA has done a job, from what we know, catching all the variants. That she was the one that they were having some major trouble with. So if she is the one variant that got away, it would make sense that if she knew, the deep secrets of the truth of the TVA and the timekeepers and all that, it would make sense how, they'd be after her. What I find really interesting is in the start of episode 3, she's talking to that agent. They're in the restaurant. It's the projection that she's using. She's in her head. She says, how many people are guarding the timekeepers? That's what I find interesting, because why would the timekeepers need guards?
Right.
Or do they? Do they have guards? Maybe she doesn't know the truth about them, which I doubt she does know the truth about them, because I don't think anybody in the TVA does, except
Mhm.
the judge. I can never remember her name.
Right. So
I don't know.
here's my question, and then here's what I think could be a possibility is one, how do they choose which individuals to become Minutemen? Right? Like why did Mobius get picked? Why did any of them get picked to become the roles they are? And if so, is it a random? Is it a lottery? Is there a particular reason? If so, and Sylvie was chosen, whether or not she is a Loki variant or not, she is a very very powerful being. Okay, so let's just
Mhm.
say she was picked to be a Minuteman, or maybe she was picked to become one of the head honchos of the TVA. Right?
Yeah.
She's very strong, and look what happened when she tried to mind control Loki. Like she's just like, "What are you doing? Like my mind's too strong for that." If she is in fact a Loki variant, her mind is probably incredibly strong as well. So
Yeah.
if she was to be brainwashed or anything along those lines, I feel like she should be smart enough and like a good enough actress to play the part of being brainwashed, just to try to gain as much information on him as possible.
Yeah.
And then maybe she double crossed them and all of a sudden tried to do these things and bring the TVA down. And all the agents are just like, "What are you doing? Like, hey, you shouldn't do that." I don't know.
Jeez. Yeah, it's crazy. One thing before we get in, because obviously people we have to talk about Kang the Conqueror. One thing I'd like to get into before that is she mentions her and a postman, which I think is really interesting because I wish I had the article pulled up, because her she actually had a relation. I believe she actually had a relationship with a postman in the comics,
Mhm.
and I can't remember his name. Let's call him Jerry. I can't remember his name. Now the interesting part is in Stanley's cameo in, I want to say, one of the Fantastic Four movies.
It was the first Fantastic Four movie.
The first Fantastic Four movie, his character is named Jerry. Not really. His character is named the
Whatever the
the
postman's name
character
is,
who's in
yeah.
the comics. So I just think that's really cool. I doubt it means anything,
Here's
but the
something I
fact
read
that,
as well, though. That postman had the ability to travel through time,
yeah, which
which would explain Stan Lee's cameo perfectly to a
all
T, because he is, if whether or not he's one of the Watchers or whether or not he's whatever, Stan Lee has the ability to travel through time. His cameos do, because in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, he's talking about one of his former cameos to the
yeah,
Watchers.
yes,
So he has the ability to travel through time. If he is in fact that postman, that could work.
yeah. Dude, how crazy is that? Because I'm sure at that point they knew nothing. It was probably just a
No.
little Easter egg at that point. But now, what if they end up being able to link it back in, the Fantastic Four, that franchise, that specific, those two movies, the Spider-Man movies, X-Men, all of it kind of links. It's not all the MCU yet, but it could still link.
Right. That could be a multiverse thing,
Yeah.
or that could be an eventual tie-in
Yeah, buddy.
to Fantastic Four or
Yep.
anything along the new Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
which there's another future tie-in that could possibly be a thing, about Kang, which we'll get into here in a few minutes.
Now I'm reading your notes right now, and
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed this, but your first question is, in the Spider-Ham universe,
Yeah, so
Kang the
here's
Conqueror
so
is
here's my
Kangaroo.
connect. I always have to have a Spidey connection here. Okay, I'll go out of my way to try to find one.
Yeah.
Kang the Conqueror in the Spider-Ham universe. Kang the Conqueror is Kangaroo the Conqueror, and
Dude,
I
that's
love that.
funny.
I
You
love
sh-
that. Always have to have a connection in there somehow,
That's
and that's
funny.
the one for this one.
Kangaroo the Conqueror. You start thinking about other like animals that could like be used for Avengers and Marvel names.
Right.
I'm trying to think of, but I'm not that creative. All right, but you can continue with Kang because I know you got some.
Okay,
We have
so
some stuff to talk about.
yeah,
with him.
so I saw a theory about who the timekeepers really are, and obviously, like we know they're kind of these lizard-looking type people. So it says so far, but I feel like those would be a good disguise for the past, future, and present versions of Kang.
Yeah.
Okay. We know Kang is going to be in Quantumania. 100%. There's no question about it at this point.
Confirmed.
Now is probably the time he's going to get introduced, especially with, again, I forget her name, the judge, his wife in the comics.
Yeah.
Being probably going to end up being one of the main villains of the show.
You have to introduce him early. It's like
you have to.
It's like Thanos. They couldn't have just thrown him in Infinity War and him be this big apocalyptic
and
villain.
And if you're with us in the live or if you're watching this, I'm sure you know Kang the Conqueror is one of the biggest villains in Marvel history. Okay, he's a menace. Like his ability to travel through time, like his story arc is it's incredible. And he's a villain to a lot of people. Which if we're going into this multiverse time travel thing, he's the perfect candidate for to be the main big bad going forward.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try my best not to just like read off a list here, but I kind of have some information on these versions of Kang. And basically there's 4 different versions of Kang. And I think 3 of them
5.
will.
Kangaroo.
True. Good point. 4 main versions of Kang. And 3 of them I feel are going to be a tie-in to this show. And then the last one could potentially be a tie-in later on. So most people know Iron Lad.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a possibility he's going to be one of the Young Avengers. His whole arc is that Iron Lad does eventually become Kang the Conqueror, the future version of himself. When he's young, Kang goes back in time, tries to fight him, and Iron Lad realizes like that's the future version of himself. He tries to destroy himself, but in order to keep like the timeline flowing and all those sort of things, he ends up having to become Kang. So it's a whole shebang. It's a little confusing. I highly recommend travel. Yeah, it's time travel. I highly recommend you go read about it. It's super interesting. So the 3 we're going to look at. So we have the normal version of Kang, just Kang the Conqueror, who flows through time, the standard one you think of, right? Then we have the past version. Okay. So Ramatut, I'm not really 100% sure how to say it, is the version of Kang that goes back in time to rule ancient Egypt. Okay. And eventually is tied into looking for the celestial Madonna, which I'll get into here in a sec. Okay. The second version I want to look at, he goes by Victor Timely. Okay. It's a version of Kang that lives in Wisconsin in 1901. Basically, he's living in this time. He has a relationship or is friends with this college graduate named Phineas Horton. He would then give him information that would go on to lead to the creation of the original Human Torch, which could be a tie-in to this next Fantastic Four movie, because Johnny Storm has been done 2 separate times now, and they might be looking to change it up a little bit as far as the Human Torch goes. Now, what do they all have in common is the celestial Madonna thing. Okay, so I'm just going to read this off because it'll make a little bit more sense. When Kang appears at Avengers Mansion to fight the Young Avengers while Iron Lad is there, he is looking for the celestial Madonna, who ends up to being Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy. So that could be a tie-in right there.
Yeah.
Because she is destined to give birth to like an all-powerful child, a celestial. I don't know if that has any sort of connection with Ego or not.
Can I ask you really quick? Do you think, with him possibly being connected to Mantis and Thor showing up together in Love and Thunder and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, do you think that might be a way to tie in not only Kang the Conqueror from this series, but Loki back into the Thor, the Thor universe, not
I don't think
universe,
it's I don't think
franchise?
it's out of the question at all.
Yeah.
I feel like it's with Kang being so relevant to the time travel multiverse thing. I 100% think this is a huge possibility to make it exactly comic accurate.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about the MCU is like I think they do a really,
They
really good
thread
job
the,
at balancing that
yeah.
line of comic accurate and like gender switching and new stories and keeping it on fresh and on its toes, but also sticking to the original point.
Yeah.
Their balance is very
That's where
good.
they
And
have like
that's
an
what
algorithm that
right.
works for,
They have the proper balance that keep people locked in, and they draw in old fans, new fans, young and old, men, women, children. Like that's why everyone loves this so much is because that balance. So I 100% think this is a possibility, especially with like how the MCU Phase 4 is like. It's very different in a lot of ways. I would love for something to be a little bit more comic accurate, to kind of group it all together. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Anyways, so back to the Celestial Madonna thing real quick. So it ends up being like an all-out warfare between all the different versions of Kang. Eventually, the normal version of Kang is killed, and it wipes out the other versions of Kang from existence.
Okay. Who kills him?
So he actually ends up destroying himself because he tries to overload his armor to be strong enough to fight Thor.
Oh, wow.
And it ends up backfiring on him and killing him.
Okay. So we could be talking about that.
I'm sorry, I forgot one as well. So the other version of Kang that is probably relevant, a little bit more relevant than the Victor Timely guy, is called Immortus, and that's the future version of Kang, and he lives in Limbo. That's where he lives and is stuck there until
What
he's
is limbo exactly?
like
Explain it.
purgatory,
Okay.
like not dead, not alive, just
Yeah.
you exist but you don't.
So what if this major battle between the Kangs and the Young Avengers, what if that's the equivalent of Endgame in 10 years or 15, 20
I
years?
could honestly see that being a thing, especially if he's going to be the big bad.
In 20 years, you guys are going to come back to this TikTok live where we called it.
My guess is that the big bad is either going to be Kang or some sort of Doctor Doom tie-in.
Yeah.
I put my money on Kang, especially because we know
right now,
confirmed he's going to be in this.
And the thing about it is Thanos was the bit. We had Loki, who was the villain in Avengers. We went to Ultron, but behind the scenes, it was always Thanos.
Right.
So that also kind of scares me. Maybe we're not going to get introduced to Kang right away. Maybe we're going to get little hints. Maybe we see like that Thanos Avengers 1 post-credit-esque thing where you just see his face, he smiles,
Mm-hmm.
and then in another post-credit, he puts the gauntlet on. He's like, I'll do this myself. Maybe those are the type of things we see of Kang. And then, his sort of how Thanos was the villain was kind of a background villain in Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe that's how Kang is in Quantumania, where maybe he's a little more prevalent, but they can't go all in. If Kang is the big bad of the MCU moving forward, it can't be all in at once. It kind of has to be. We just got finished with Thanos. Was it 2 years ago or 2 years ago? Is that when Endgame came out?
Almost
2018. That came out in 2020, didn't it? 2019 it came out. Infinity War came out in 2018.
You're right.
2019 has been 2 years. It's about that time where they need to start throwing him in, then really introduce him so we know what's going on, and then we find out how powerful he is and how the Young Avengers or the Eternals, because the Eternals are going to have to play into this somehow.
Yes.
And
what's interesting is the Eternals are the most powerful beings that the Eternals know about. But in reality, there's these timekeepers that even the Eternals don't know about that are even more powerful than them. So
Yeah.
you talk about like in the Infinity Saga, it was always Thanos, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, even during the Infinity Saga, it could have always been Kang
Yeah,
or
but
whoever this next big
maybe
bad is
working
going to
it
be.
out, keeping
Right,
his
but
secret
that's
timeline
all
in
been
order.
that's all been happening though this whole time.
Yeah, definitely.
What I could
Really
end
quick,
up, and
really
this is
quick.
just like a go
Sorry.
ahead.
I was just saying we had a comment. There's podcasts on TikTok. This is just for everybody watching. This is where we do we do live stream on TikTok. In a couple weeks, we're going to go back to live streaming on YouTube as well. But you can find our podcasts on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you you listen to podcasts, you can find us. But in a couple weeks, we will be having a multi-live show where we're on YouTube and TikTok at once, just so you know. And then we have a comment under that. It says, "Hey, you cool?" Of course. Yes, I am.
Right, we cool.
Yes, sir. All right.
So I have a fan theory for you.
Is this about Kang?
It's about all of it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is my prediction for what's going to happen, and odds are it's wrong. But let's just say that these timekeepers are these versions of Kang. Okay, and like you said, we get some sort of scene at the end where it's just like Thanos, like he turns around and you see his face for the first time, or you see him putting the gauntlet on for the first time. It could be something along the lines of like Loki ends up getting to these elevators, taking the elevators up, walks into the room, and he sees these three cloaked figures. Right, they lift their head up, and we see these strange looking versions of Kang. Maybe they realize they're in trouble, and they kind of expand that room into the quantum realm. If that ends up being where the TVA actually is, that would directly lead into Quantumania, where they're trying to figure out how to gain quantum energy, how to be able to transverse and travel through the quantum realm easily. And all of a sudden they're experimenting, and they show up somewhere on this timeline, and these three beings show up in front of Scott, and then all of a sudden Loki's there as well, and Ant-Man knows who Loki is, right? Would he know who Loki is?
I mean, he hasn't dealt with him, but I'm sure he knows who it is. Yeah.
Right, and all of a sudden sees Loki and like knows something's up. I feel like that could be a very easily done tie-in.
Yeah. What's interesting, this doesn't directly correlate with that, but Marvel posted their poster for tonight's episode, and it had, each week they do a character, just like Star Wars and Disney Plus does with all the Star Wars shows coming out. This week they came out with the poster for the Timekeepers. So maybe tonight we're gonna either learn a lot more about them, or maybe we see them. But I definitely think we're gonna get a look at the Timekeepers. Not a physical look, but like excuse me, we're going to get a look into who the timekeepers really are.
I imagine it being like, how cool would it be if like this room where these timekeepers live are just like how they show it in that like animated clip that Miss Minutes goes through, and like where it's like, it's just like you walk in this door and it's like space. It's just a big black room, but like there's no floor or anything, but you can like walk through it, and there's a physical timeline there, and they're holding that timeline, trying to like piece it back together.
Who knows? We're running a little low on time, and there's a couple things we need to talk about. We've been going for about 45 minutes. Are you good on the Loki theories? Want to get into some other Marvel stuff, or is there anything else?
Yeah, I think that's it. Ravana is the judge's name.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's her name.
Okay, so sorry. Do you have anything else on Loki?
Nope, I think that's about it.
All right. So are we doing the Shang-Chi trailer next?
Sure,
not the entire trailer, or do we want to do?
Just talk about the one thing from it. Yeah.
Okay. Wong is fighting Abomination. What the heck is up with that? Like, what's going on?
I find it interesting because like obviously fans don't really consider the Hulk movie to be part of the MCU.
It is though.
It is.
It is.
But
I wonder. Same Abomination?
That's exactly what I was about to ask. Like, I'm curious if there's any way. What I would love to see is if Abomination is in this, maybe in She-Hulk or something, because Banner is 100% going to be in She-Hulk.
Yeah.
The set pictures came out today, and it's Professor Hulk is going to be in it. I would love if they could kind of fix it by going back and showing like recreated moments from that movie, but with Mark Ruffalo.
Dude, picture Professor Hulk fighting the Abomination we see for a split second in that trailer. Dude, Abomination's wiping the floor with him.
Dude, well, okay, two things. One, I think Savage Hulk is going to make his way back.
I hope, man. I want to.
I really think so, because we were given an injustice by Savage Hulk's last moment getting his ass kicked by Thanos. That's the last time we ever see Savage Hulk. Two,
if we see Savage Hulk, do you think he'll still be a little smarter where he can control himself?
I think either way, even if it is 100% Savage Hulk, he will be smarter than we've seen in the past, just because Hulk does age. So like that's how we see him from Age of like the first Avengers to Ragnarok. He's able to speak better and all those because Hulk is aging. He is getting smarter.
Yeah,
like Savage Hulk is. So yes, he'll probably be able to control himself a little bit, but I want to see him go berserk mode.
Yeah, bro. Same, man.
Yeah.
The last time we didn't even see it. Dude, think of the last time we saw Savage Hulk.
It was
Savage
really Hulk, Ragnarok.
We saw it a little in Ragnarok, him and
Age of Ultron?
Thor go at it. But yeah, Age of Ultron is where he just demolishes that city.
Hulk smash.
Exactly.
I think he's gonna make his way back.
Why is Wong fighting Abomination?
Why? Right. That I feel like could be a multiversal thing. To be honest, I haven't seen that in years, bro. Like I need to go back that Hulk movie.
Hulk, yeah.
I need to go back and watch that. Two, they are, I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but like heavily rumored that they are introducing Hulk's son, not Banner's son, Hulk's son.
Okay.
While he was on Sakaar, he was
shacking up
with a Sakarian woman. Is that how you would say that?
Yeah.
Whatever his name is. So his son's name is Zakar with a Z.
Okay.
And he has the powers of the Hulk and has like not magical powers, but he's very in touch with Sakaar, like draws strength from Sakaar, and it kind of uses a little bit of magic.
That's dope.
So
but like,
there's
what
a
does
good
that have
chance
to
we
do
see
with
him in She-Hulk.
What does that have to do with Wong and Abomination? Like, I don't know a lot about.
I'm curious if they're going towards the direction of Planet Hulk.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not like the most familiar with it. I have a little bit of an idea, but it's Planet Hulk. We already have the person who becomes Red Hulk.
Yeah.
With Thunderbolt Ross, he becomes Red Hulk. So we have a bunch of people that are lined up to become a Planet Hulk type situation.
I don't mean to like throw a monkey wrench into all this, but I find it very interesting that Abomination was introduced again in this Avengers video game, and now he's introduced again in the MCU. And Abomination does not really look like he did in the Hulk, but if you kind of look at the video game, they kind of look alike. Now, if the multiverse is opening, especially if they're bringing in, all these Spider-Men, Miles Morales from, Spider-Verse, who's to say we're not getting these other versions of the Avengers and we're getting Miss Marvel. Who's to say that this Abomination isn't the one
from the
video game and we're about to see the multiverse open up?
I don't know how I feel about.
I don't know how I
feel about. I haven't either. I don't know how I feel about that because I feel like there's a little bit of a difference. Like an example of a video game that can tie in well is Fallen Order in the Star Wars universe.
That's because much different though.
But that works.
But that's I don't know. They made that specifically to be canon though.
Right. But if this theory of this Abomination being from the video game, they made that to be canon.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I just don't
If that
feel like
if
they
that
can be
is the case,
compared.
I would also I would love this version of Hulk that is from the future. He calls himself I can't remember what he calls himself, but he's like bald. He has like white hair with like a bald spot on top. Like he's super smart. He has
Yeah.
like psychic abilities.
No, I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember what he calls himself something, but
I don't know.
he's kind of a villain. That'd be super interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if this Abomination Wong fight is anything like the Thor Hulk fight in Ragnarok, where it's kind of like a cage match pitting two strong people against one another. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just thought that was so random in this trailer, but I don't really know what all to say about it.
Oh, I'm the most excited for Shang-Chi to see the actual Mandarin.
Yes, I'm
That's gonna be
excited to see
sick.
those 10 rings look awesome.
Dude, in the comics, the Mandarin was unreal.
Yeah,
Like scary.
I know.
And it was a joke in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, Iron Man 3.
Yeah, you're right. We're actually gonna see him, and it's gonna be sick.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move into the final topic of the evening.
WandaVision.
The WandaVision ending has changed. So the post-credit scene, originally was zooming in on the trees, this beautiful panoramic scene, and it goes into Wanda, reading the Darkhold in an astral projection. Now, in the top left-hand corner, they have added a shadow, or I don't even know if it's a shadow,
Reflection or something.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's like if
people are interpreting it as sort of like a spirit or an astral projection of someone.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. And who do you think that would be? I can't think of
the
it.
The thing is, I don't know if it's actually an astral projection or if it's just a filming mistake, because like in the whole editing process, they took out a bunch of trees and stuff.
But they figured they changed
But they also
it,
they also took out the reflection of in the windows. When they're like going into the house, there was reflection in the windows, and they removed that. So maybe it was a mistake. I don't know.
If you look at it like up close, dude, it is a person.
I don't know.
Man.
It can't be vision, because in order to have an astral projection, you have to exist, and he doesn't exist.
But we don't. The thing is that okay, white vision 100% exists, and at the end of WandaVision, I can't remember if it was Vision or Wanda who says it. They say, we've said goodbye before, so it begs to reason that we'll say hello again. And Vision ends up saying, too, who knows what I'll become next. So I truly think we're going to see Vision again.
I just had goosebumps.
I know.
I'm not going to lie.
Same. I know. I believe that we're going to see Vision again. How that is, what he will be next, who knows? But I don't think that's Vision. I think the most realistic one is it's Doctor Strange.
He was supposed to be in it. He was supposed to be in it. And there was obviously going to be a huge tie in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Something was going to go down. So maybe that was their way of saying, okay, that's how it's going to tie in.
Yeah.
Because let's just say, like, COVID aside or anything along those lines, in the filming process, if the timeline of WandaVision, right, is going here, and then we pick up at Multiverse of Madness, and all of a sudden Doctor Strange is there, where has he been this whole time?
Yeah.
Why would he not have been there earlier? So maybe that was their tie-in of saying, okay, he was there. Maybe he was there the whole time in his astral form because his physical form could not get through.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what that was as well.
Man, dude, this is nuts. I'm so excited. What are you most excited for? Well, that's a stupid
question. You know what I'm most excited for.
I know. No Way Home.
No Way Home is going to be
Do you
sick.
see, I read something. I'm pretty sure that all three actors were in New York at the same time. How have we not gotten a trailer yet? Wait, is that coming out this year or next?
So this year,
did you
this
hear me?
this Christmas,
Bro, 6 months.
December 17th. So I heard a theory on that. Why we haven't gotten a trailer yet is because there's a huge spoiler with the multiverse that we're gonna find out in Loki.
Oh my dude, it makes sense.
It makes sense because there would 100%.
Maybe that's why they had to. Didn't they move Loki up?
Yes.
Maybe that's
Move
why they
Loki
had
up. There 100% should have been a teaser by now.
something. There's been
Or
nothing.
there's been the one teaser.
What teaser where they walk by the board that says its name? That is not a teaser.
I agree, but usually it's like there's at least another teaser, maybe not a trailer, but at least another teaser out by now.
Something, man. We've got nothing.
So there's something huge with the multiverse. We're gonna find out in the next two weeks.
Let me ask you a question, and then we'll wrap this up. And I don't mean to break your heart. Let's say No Way Home comes and none of these theories, rumors, nothing pans out. There's so much evidence to support everything the past year, 2 years at that point. Nothing happens. What do you do from there? Like, how do you recover from that?
Well, here's my take on it. Toby doesn't show up, Andrew doesn't show up. Yeah. Oh well, that
Miles Morales doesn't show up. Nothing.
If that happens, this movie is still going to be the start of the Sony MCU verse.
You think?
Yes, that's going to be the tie-in to how Spider-Man gets into the Sony verse.
So do you think Spider-Man is leaving the MCU? Do you think the Sony verse is kind of tying into the MCU?
I'm not, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure because like the whole verdict on it is everything in the MCU is going to be relevant to the Sony verse, but the Sony verse isn't going to be relevant to the MCU.
Yeah.
So that's not to say that everything that happens in the Sony verse doesn't technically happen in the MCU, but it's just not going to be shown.
No, I get that.
So I don't know if he's technically leaving, or if he leaves, I don't know if he come back.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it would make sense. End of the contract, end of the movie lines. I'd be okay with that, to be completely honest.
As long as he's somewhere, as long as we're getting more Spider-Man.
Yeah, as long as his story is advancing and there's a tie-in with like this whole the Morbius, with Venom, with the Spider-Verse, with there's so many things in the works. I'd be a little upset. I'm 100 million% going to be upset if there's no Andrew Toby tie-in, but as long as there is something that shows like forward movement within the Sony verse, I'll be okay with it.
No, I get it. I get it for sure. So, is there anything else that we have to talk about before we let the peeps go?
No, I don't think so. I think tonight another episode of Loki coming out. Yeah. Our reaction will be out tonight as well. If you guys want to, wake up tomorrow morning and check that thing out, that'd be awesome. We're gonna find something out huge about the multiverse. I think
that's tonight's gonna be a good episode.
My guess is tonight's gonna be something earth shattering. Next week it's gonna be like, okay, Loki's in trouble, he's got to find his way home, and then the following week the finale is gonna be another huge event that's gonna tie into Quantum Mania in some aspect.
Dude, the future's bright, as it's been for a long time. But everybody, both, I don't know if you're watching this live right now on TikTok, if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on one of the podcast platforms, but wherever you're listening to us right now, we can't thank you enough. Tonight was super fun. We haven't had a good Marvel talk like this in a good little bit. It's been a minute. So yeah, as Alec and I have said, we are both going through some major changes in life. We both started new jobs. I've moved to a new apartment last week, so have just been getting set up, which is why you don't see my collection behind me. But we can't thank you guys enough for watching and just continuing to support us. We pray you keep doing it into the future, and I think it's only on the rise from here. So thank you for joining us. Once again, you can check us out everywhere, pretty much anywhere that is social media or any type of media platform. You can find us at Carbonite Convos. So definitely check us out there. You can follow me at Funko Stud, Alec at Wallcrawler Pops. You can check out the second TikTok, which is where I'm broadcasting right now on Star Wars MCU Facts. And you can check our Loki reaction tomorrow morning. Well, Wednesday morning, our Bad Batch episode Friday morning. And we're going to have a brand new Funko Pop list coming out tomorrow night. So definitely have a lot coming out. But until those episodes, guys, may the Force be with you.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.